Peace and blessings, and welcome back to Veterans Arts on Air. I am your host, Mel L., and this is my co-host,
Sarah Ellefson.
All right, well, it's been a long time since we were here. It's been almost 2 months now. So, first show of the new year, so Happy New Year's to all of you that are out there watching. And we'd invite you all once again to always feel free to give us a call. The number is there on the bottom of the screen. And we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it because apparently we got a lot of changes that we need to discuss.
It's been a while.
I know, right?
Can't stay away long and expect things to stay the same.
Yeah, so one of the first things I guess that we are going to get into is that you, I understand, have gotten a new position at the museum. Right?
I did, yes.
All right, so let's talk about that. So what is your new role at the museum? Actually, first of all, what was your old position
I
at
was
the museum?
the Grants and Communications Coordinator.
Okay, so writing grants, trying to get the money.
Yep, the
all that
Facebook,
stuff.
social media, the press releases.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now what are you doing now and why the change?
I'm now the Director of Programming, and it was a pretty natural transition with the grant writing and with the communications aspect of things. I was kind of dancing around the edges of all of the programming we had going on,
Okay.
and we didn't have a point person to help manage some of the events and activities we were doing.
Gotcha.
So I kind of said, hey, why don't you let me do this?
All right. Well, so what is your vision for the future with your new position and where you see it taking the museum here looking forward?
Yeah, we have tons of wonderful staff and volunteers and interns helping me with this.
Okay.
But one of the things that we really want to do is get the word out about how much goes on around the art in the collection.
Okay.
So everyone knows us as, right, a pretty special, pretty unique, pretty incredible art museum. But not everybody knows what we do with the art that's on the walls.
Okay.
And we've been lucky enough to have you work with us and share your work through Evolution of War and a number of other programs. But we have 5 pillars, 5 organizational pillars that kind of structure the programming that we do. So arts, education, therapeutic art, civics engagement, and international outreach.
Okay.
And so every day we're trying to do something to further these goals. And so my job now is to help get the word out about the programs and to help get more programs going.
All right. Well, I think it's been working because in the last week I've seen my name pop up on places that I didn't realize that knew me.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot of fun. Of course, going into our upcoming workshops and going into Black History Month or African American History Month, there are a lot of different projects going on in a lot of different places. So, of course, the National Veterans Arts Museum has been looking to make sure that we are also taking a step forward and getting into those things as well. So, before we get into all of that stuff that we'll be talking about next month or next week when we tune back in, why is what you're doing now as a programming director so integral to Chicago's cultural community?
Yeah. So one of the really nice things about working where I work is that we end up being a hub, not just for veterans, but for their families, for their friends, and for people who are interested in veterans issues. So a lot of this programming is our way to get some resources and to get some community established and built up. I think we've talked about this in the past, how the VFW isn't so much a thing for the 9/11 generation. Right? But you need a place to have a community. You need to have a place to have people who understand you or who want to try. And so I'm hopeful that the museum can continue to operate like that.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. I know the IVA, W, or the Iraqi Vets Against the War are always out looking for places and trying to continue the connection and, continuing to get those veterans of our newer wars to actually come out and be a little bit more expressive.
Yeah.
'Cause I think I've said it time and time again. I did not talk much about my experiences until hanging out with those guys a little bit more, just because it's like, all right, these people have gone through it, so they understand it. So it's not like me just talking to a bunch of random people who I'm just saying stuff to and they don't understand what it is that we're getting into. So,
Right? Don't understand or don't even know how to begin to understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's good. I'm looking forward to seeing some of these different projects and things that we're going to be doing with our new programming director. So
Well, you were one of my first phone calls, so.
Oh yes, that I was, and was not expecting it. I actually thought when you called, you were calling about the show, and it was like, hey, you got a show coming up this week. And it's like, it's been a while, so I was sitting at home relaxing. I had thought about being on the air, and I was a little nervous coming back in here because I'm like, man, it's been a while. Like I haven't been seen on the screen for almost 2 months. But then it dawned on me, I like what I do. So being in front of the camera and being in front of people and talking about these things isn't that big of a stretch for me. So I'm kind of getting back into it, and hopefully, the audience out there is kind of riding this out with us as I kind of knock out all of the kinks and get back into this thing. Right?
Yeah, good.
So yeah, I guess the next thing is the next month, in a couple of days, we will be going into African American History Month. And as I've said before, there are a lot of African American veterans here in and around Chicago, as well as other places, who may not necessarily know where their voice is or where they fit into what it is that veterans have out there for them. So the museum is actually looking into getting some workshops and doing some stuff with the African American History Month and our veterans to kind of get some arts out there. So one of those things, of course, would be the workshop that we have coming up next week, a week from Saturday. On February 8th.
Yes.
I will be at the museum hosting a workshop, a graffiti arts workshop, and talking about my experiences as a veteran and how the arts that I do have actually helped me get through some of those things.
So I called you up and I said, hey, I have an idea, and I think that you'd be the kind of guy who I could call on to lead a workshop. What kind of workshop would you want to lead? And you took it from there.
Yeah, well, it's kind of what I do at work now anyway, working in education and working with kids. It's like, okay, I have to go into a classroom. I have to be able to get my point across. So what do I want to do? How do I get these things across? So the moment you made that phone call, I was like, well, I got plenty of things that we could do. It's all a matter of what we want to get done. So we came up with a workshop where I would go in and just teach some of the different art techniques that I use. Being a self-taught artist, I've come through a lot of different techniques and things like that. I don't necessarily do it the way that others will do it. I do what works for me because this is my form of expression, so I get to do it my way. And I am going to take off and I'm going to go for about 2 hours for one workshop and show some kids or families or whoever like to show up what it is that I do and how I create the art that I create visually. Maybe a little bit further on down the line, we can talk about performing arts and some of the other stuff that I do. But yeah, so that will be what is going on.
So it's February 8th, and right now the first workshop, we're still seeing how the numbers are coming in, is 1 to 3 in the afternoon.
1 to 3.
And it's called Identity and Representation, a graffiti arts workshop with Mel L.
Right.
Now, Mel L is your performing name.
Yes, that is who I am.
Want to tell us a little bit about where that comes from, Microphone Misfits?
Mel L, the Misfit of the Microphone Misfits crew. Actually, last year, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So the Microphone Misfits started in 2003. Shortly after my stint in Iraq, I came out to Chicago to visit with my theater partner, because I started a theater company shortly out of high school. And when I went off to Iraq, my theater partner came out here to go to school. And so I came out here to visit and just kind of see where things stood with that, and realized that, these guys are out here doing music, which is something I've been doing for a while. And they wanted to work on a demo, and I was, me being the guy with the big ideas, like, let's not do just a demo. Let's go and make a full-on album. So my first project as a official executive producer was a 12-track album by D-Nick, the Microphone Misfit, called Consider the Future, which was the demo project that we put together. So featuring young DRU, Young Drastic Rhymes Universal, one of my younger brothers. And it just kind of took off from there. The show started traveling. We started doing the Hip Hop Congress. We started teaching workshops and traveling throughout the country. I sent one of the Microphone Misfits, went and did a project over in Africa, in Algeria, with the U.S. Embassy, teaching or doing hip-hop diplomacy, basically using hip-hop arts to kind of bring peace and some structure to some of the areas out in Africa. So this was a long thing that was going on back in, I want to say 2010.
Okay.
And so, so we've just been going ever since. Since then, myself, I prefer to stay behind the scenes a little bit. That's one of the times where I really like to just kind of bag it up. But as a graffiti writer, as a part-time DJ, as a manager, it is my job to just kind of make sure that my guys are taken care of. So since moving to Chicago in 2008, we have, actually before 2008, we did D-Nick's Brace Yourself for the Impact album. Came back, we did the graphic novel album. We did Young DRU's Push or Pull. We executive produced an album from a local artist named Bob Rock, the Blue Collar Bandit, out in Pilsen, called Poverty in Color. And then we took it a step further, and we decided to make sure our third album, Escape from Babylon, came with a comic book. So on top of being hip-hop artists, we are also comic book characters, comic book writers, comic book editors. So I edited my first comic book and did all of this stuff by the time I was 30. So how most people dream of being superheroes and whatnot, I've been able to do all of that just through being down with our Microphone Misfits.
Yeah.
And we are a hip hop crew. We are elemental practitioners. So all 5 elements of hip hop are something that we make sure that we are well versed in. So the 5 elements being DJing, MCing, graffiti, breakdancing, and the knowledge that holds them all together. The knowledge being the 5th element that we make sure that is taught to our kids when we're going out and doing our workshops. So that's kind of how all of that came together. The name itself, Mel L, is just my name.
Yeah.
Melvin Lyons is my government name. Mel L is just what I was called in and around the neighborhood, and so that's just kind of where it stuck. And me being the misfit, or as my title says, the misfit among misfits, is because I don't fit in anywhere except on stage. I think I was the only microphone misfit that wasn't living in Chicago at the time that our nucleus kind of formed out here. So I was still out in Michigan doing my thing, and I still, like, even though I'm there and I'm a misfit among my brothers, I'm still a little bit more different than some of the rest of them. It's kind of awkward, but that's kind of where it comes from. So yeah.
Okay. And so you were in Flint while this was getting started.
I was in Flint, Michigan. Yeah.
Just gotten back from Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And are you the only veteran in the crew?
Yes.
And
yes,
does that feel like something?
Well, it in itself is something that comes up quite often. We've mentioned it in the comic book. Because of me being a veteran, my outlook on things are a little bit different. Also, myself and D-Nick, which is our main MC, both grew up on the south side of Flint. So we in ourselves are of a different breed. Like, there's something about Flint, Michigan that just makes us a rarity. So we are in ourselves are just different by nature from most of the people within our crew. And then me being a veteran, I have my moments. I have my issues where I just kind of snap off every now and again. I'm a real straightforward, very disciplined. Me being a manager, it's my job to make sure that when we're on the road, we stick to the schedule. We're where we need to be when we need to be there, and I love that part of it. That's the discipline that I was brought with. A, from being from Flint, and then B, being a Marine, just kind of helped me out when dealing with the business of it. I'm straightforward, straight to the point. I don't like playing around with a bunch of promoters who want to play with the money, or you're supposed to go on at this time, but you're going to go on at this time. Like, I'm there when things need to be dealt with. It's my job to deal with them. And I think me being a veteran and just being that no-nonsense type of guy from Flint just kind of makes all of that a little bit easier to do.
Yeah. So how'd you get into the graffiti arts?
Well, as with most people who get into
now, how
graffiti
much of this
arts,
are we allowed to talk about? How much?
Oh no, let's go. Graffiti, because in American society it's considered vandalism, even though
right.
For years, dating back to the ancient Egyptians and the writings on the wall, the arts on the walls were always used to tell the story of the people of the time. Me being a graffiti writer, like being a hip hopper, that was one of those things. Like, this is what we did. I love the arts, and so painting was something that I was always into, and picking up a couple of cans and going out and just finding a wall. First it just started off with me just writing my name somewhere, and then it became, okay, well, how can I put a picture up using these arts, and then how can I make my name look a little bit better? And so it just kind of became a progression of things that I did, starting around, I think, 13 or 14 years old. And of course, once you turn 18, it's a felony at this point. So I had to find other avenues of doing it. And so I've been fortunate enough to work in a couple of different museums and work with a bunch of different people in various places that have given me the avenues to actually go out and do it. Living in the places that I lived, I've been fortunate enough to have rooms and walls where I can go in and just paint in the house and do these things. And so I just kind of built on it from there and just never really looked back. And again, being a hip hopper, all 5 of the elements of hip hop is something that I am versed in. I call myself an elemental practitioner. So I can DJ, I can MC or do MC. Breakdancing was a little bit easier before the war and before my limbs started to go bad.
Hard on the knees and hips.
Yeah. I got some serious damage done through my time in the military, so I had to kind of let loose on that one a little bit. I still kind of teach basic stuff like up rocks, down rocks, things of that nature. But so all of those basic elements are something that I do. And then again, like the theater, singing, dancing, like all of these are things that as an artist I've always liked to do. Even just writing poetry and something like that. If it's a form of creativity, I find a way to put myself into it.
Yeah.
It just kind of goes from there.
And so this isn't your first graffiti workshop that you've hosted?
No, actually through the group that we call Hip Hop Congress, which is a national organization. we do this thing every year called the Midwest Summit. And so the Midwest Summit, the last 3 or 4 years, maybe even longer than that, have been hosted at the University of Michigan. And each year at this um, convention, we would go out. It's usually a 2-day event. We would go out, and myself and our crew, or the people that we were coming out with, our FEW camp, the Fifth Element Warriors, the Microphone Misfits, we would go out and we would teach these workshops. And so, given these particular things, like at the University of Michigan, I think the largest crowd I had was, I think maybe 30 to 40 people in one particular class at one time. And mind you, this is when we have 4 different workshops going simultaneously. So I've got about 30 in my room. I've got 30 guys that are doing breakdancing elsewhere. You got another 30 that are doing MC workshops elsewhere. And then you got another 30 or 40 that are doing DJing workshops with one of our other guys. So,
Cool.
So we've done that quite a bit. The schools that I work at, I take it upon myself to utilize what it is that I do to help get to my kids. So maybe once a quarter during the school year, I will try to do something, at least one of these elements, and then go on from there. During the summers, at least one workshop during the summers, depending on where I'm working at. And I try to make sure that I am constantly out there, at least giving them the basics of what it is that I do. So
Yeah.
So I try to keep busy with it. Yeah.
So how is this workshop going to, we kind of hung a lofty title on it, the identity and representation.
Well, for me, with anything that I do, one of the biggest things for me is making sure that we utilize 4 basic things: my sense of humor, my views, my passions, and my pains. Those 4 things are present in everything that I do. So when we talk about identity and representation, those 4 things essentially represent who I am. This is how I express myself. So these are the things that I am pushing through my art. Today I may feel like laughing. So what's something that I see visually as an expression of my laughter? As far as it representing where I am as a person, I think anything that we do kind of focuses in on who we are at that moment. So just like how at any given time, if you're having a bad day, it shows. People see it. So you're representing those feelings and those emotions. So how do you take that identity of who you are, what you've been through your life, and how you're feeling at the time, and how do you express that? How do you allow your mind and your hand to just freely create from that? And I think that's what we're going to touch in on. Show a few basic techniques, show them how to make sure that if this is what we're doing, this is the easiest way to get that done.
Okay.
Or this is a way to get that done. And then let's see how it works.
And so the workshop is free and open to the public.
Workshop is free. So for those of you who are wanting to come out and hang out with us. It's free. I'll be there.
Friendly.
Family friendly.
But you don't have to have a kid to come. Open to
make
everyone.
sure that I am definitely family friendly. With all of our workshops, especially with what we do being a hip hop crew, we always make sure that our shows are friendly from 9 months to 99 years old. Like what we do or what I do, I make sure that I am open to all ages. Again, working with kids and working in the school setting, I learn how to kind of tame it down when I need to, how to take it up a notch when I need to, how to work with the mixed elements. So if I've got some younger ones that aren't quite getting in, some older ones that are, how do I utilize what's going on in that room to make sure that everybody's there together? So it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have some music playing in the background. We'll make sure that it's going to be a nice, fun atmosphere. So 2 hours of nonstop just painting, having fun, listening to music. We'll do a little bit of talking just to kind of get everybody up and going and just break through. All right, this is who I am. This is what I do.
And everyone in the workshop is an artist. Everyone's making something.
Absolutely. Everybody that is there, you will create something. And my goal, one of the things that I would like to see, or what we would like to see, is that the works that we do make there maybe get displayed at the museum. And then once African American History Month is done, those people, we'll see about, possibly getting that work to you, or just having your work out there to be displayed. Like, there's no greater feeling than being an artist and having your work seen by the people.
And the work will be on display at the close of the workshop through the end of the month. So you have a long time to see your art on display at the National Veterans Art Museum.
And one of my favorite things about that, if you have something that is shown there and something that you would like for your friends to see, we are free every day. The museum is open every day that they are open, for free. Had to backtrack on that. So the museum is open on what days?
Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 5. It is free to get in. All you got to do is show up, say hi. If you'd like to make a donation, feel free. There's a place to do that. We're always looking for donations. We're always looking for people who would like to help support the arts and things like that. But if you want to come in, you want your people to see what you have done, it is free. So come on out.
Yeah,
make it
come
happen.
visit us.
Absolutely. So now we've had a lot of stuff that we just talked about.
Yeah.
And just that little bit. I feel like it's weird. Like we spent the entire show so far just talking about ourselves. It's great.
If people want to call in, give us some ideas on programming, things you like, things you want to see.
Yeah.
We're all ears.
And I'm always looking for something to do, looking for somewhere to be involved at the museum again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't get a chance to get out as often as I do because I stay so busy with all of these other projects. We are actually in the midst of working on our second comic book.
Okay.
And our third, fourth, fifth,
Uh-oh.
some number of albums.
Okay.
I don't remember.
And is it going to be companion again?
It will be companion again. Escape from Babylon, Volume 2.
Okay.
We're about halfway done with the music. The book should be, we're about a fifth of the way through that. Still got some storylines to develop and things like that. But
And does every member of the crew help write, help draw?
actually, we hired an illustrator. So
Okay.
we do have an illustrator
Very
who
cool.
was a fan of our music, who wanted to design an album cover for us. And then we saw the album cover, was like, yeah, comic book. It's time to do it. Because this is something we've been talking about for years. The comic book was something that we had been talking about doing for a very long time. And hip-hop and comic books have always gone hand in hand. A lot of the more well-known artists have always been fans of comic books. Some of my favorite artists, Wu-Tang, have done like comic book themed type projects. Public Enemy had a comic book series that they were doing for a while, so it's kind of a progressional thing. Like it's always going hand in hand. So it's always good to be able to bring those back together.
Yeah, very
Right?
cool.
And it's also helpful too. Like we get to tour and do Comic-Con conventions all the time. Get to meet some of my idols just hanging out at Comic-Con while we're selling our merchandise here. DMC from Run DMC is signing autographs on the other side of the room, or Vivica Fox, or I actually got to meet the kids from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I used to love that film as a kid. Of course, they're a lot older now, but the
probably
accents
not
are there.
kids
It's like,
anymore.
oh, Lord, no. Lord, no. But when I saw them, I heard the one young lady, and her accent was very, very thick, and I was just like, oh my God, like,
I know exactly who you are.
it's about 30, 40 years, some odd years later, and like, you sound the same. It's great. I love this. So, yeah, just being an artist and doing all this, like, art can take you a lot further than a lot of people will allow it to. So,
Yeah. I think that's a great way of framing a lot of what our programming is doing. This art can take people places.
absolutely.
And it's our job to help make this art move people.
And as veterans, it's very helpful in taking us out of that dark space at times. Like I say, if it hadn't been for my arts, who knows where I'd be at this moment. Like it's difficult, especially being a veteran and living through the things that you live through. Giving my art has been the expression that's kind of helped me get through some of these things. Still not 100% there, but working on it.
Yeah.
Taking one step at a time. So
Got to keep making art.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, oh boy, it's been a long time. Looks like we got a few other things we're gonna get into before we get out of here. But again, we'll be back next week for our regularly scheduled show for February next Thursday. So we'll be back. We'll be able to finish all of these things up. But I want to talk about some of the upcoming things that we have going on at the museum. So the after-school drop-in programming. What is this?
I'm very excited about this. Our education coordinator, Christine Bispalich Davis, has been working very hard to launch a new spring program.
Okay.
So starting with February, the program is called Making Connections, and it's every Friday from 3 to 5. It's a free, of course we're always free, but it's free drop-in arts programming for school-aged youth.
Okay.
So each Friday we'll have a new theme, and school-aged youth are welcome to come make this a space to hang out in after school.
All right, sounds like a plan. Also, in February, we have Making Connections. So tell me a little bit about what's going on with that. How are we making connections in February?
So on February 14, the program is Objects to Life.
Okay.
February 21, The Things We Carry. And February 28, He Said, She Said, They Said, We Said. Collage is communication. So lots of great art-making projects for youth.
Okay, and these will be, again, these are Fridays, 3 to 5.
Yep.
All right, they are free and open to the public. And then also the youth media workshops. that are ongoing on Tuesdays from 3:30 to 5:30 down at the Harold Washington Library.
Yeah, we're so lucky to have them host us there. A really great event. Again, free, of course.
All right.
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday. So to sum everything up, basically, I'll be hosting a workshop on February 8th. Our new programming director.
Yep.
All right. We will be back again next week. So we'll talk a little bit more about the things that we are doing, tell you a little bit more about our exhibit. And for more information, you can catch us at our website, nvam.org.
Yep.
All right?
Thank you.
Peace and blessings. I'll see you next week.